ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तस्य वितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
Dear students, class 8th English, I am Ashwin Davadra with you. We are discussing chapter number 8, the open window, in our PA 2 syllabus. Page number 96, let's open everybody and let's see the last paragraph. We read and explain. Poor aunt, what happened actually? Let's recap. Okay, Mr. Frampton Nuttall came to Mrs. Sappleton's house. Actually, he got address and name from his sister, and when Mr. Frampton Nuttall went to Mrs. Sappleton's house, Mrs. Sappleton was not right there. The door was open by Mrs. Sappleton's niece Vera, and Vera was talking with Mr. Sappleton, Mr. Nuttall, and conversation was going on, and Vera gave the information regarding the tragedy, her tragedy, Mrs. Sappleton tragedy, and everybody knows what was the tragedy. She told in his talking, actually his conversation, her conversation. Mrs. Sappleton's husband, his two brothers, and dog went for snipe shooting one day before 3 years ago, and they all three drowned in a dangerous piece of bog, and they never came back. Okay, so the bodies were never recovered. That was the dreadful part of it, and the child's voice actually lost his confident note, means Vera's voice. And afterwards, what happened? Let's see in this paragraph and ahead paragraphs, everybody. Let's see, everybody. Come on. Poor aunt always thinks that they will come back someday and walk in at that window just as they used to do. There's an open window. Open window I show you in the video. Okay. Once again I just show if you want. Okay. So they will come back from the window only. And Mrs. Sappleton always sees through the window. They will come one day. They will come one day. Miss Sappleton. Okay. And that is why the window is kept open every evening till it is quite dark. Actually, whatever Vera says, she is creating a story actually regarding the open window. Nothing to do with the open window actually, but she is making a prank with Mr. Nuttall actually. Poor dear aunt, she has often told me how they went out, her husband with his white waterproof coat over his arm, and Ronnie, her youngest brother, singing, Bertie, why do you bound? Bertie, why do you bound? As he always did to tease her, because she said it annoyed her. So likewise, Mrs. Sappleton's brother was teasing Mrs. Sappleton by calling and singing a song, Bertie, okay, why do you bound? Do you know, sometimes on still quiet evenings like this, I almost get a creepy, it is mean the eerie, dreadful, unpleasant feeling that they will all walk in through that window. So she was telling to Mr. Nuttall actually this way. Alright, dear students. So let's see the meanings over here given. Practically it is mean that almost, and more we have already read the meaning. An open area of highland covered with rough grass, found especially in Britain. Snipe means bird with a long straight beak that lives near rivers, bog, soft, wet ground. So one question is over here, why does Vera tell Frampton Nuttall about her aunt's treasury? To make prank only. Alright? Okay, dear students, let's go ahead, page number 97, and let's read and explain the next passages. She stopped, talking with a little shiver. It was a relief to Frampton when the aunt entered the room with a series of apologies for being late. Okay, at the time when Vera completes the story, and at that time Mrs. Stapleton, comes from the upstairs, and she, asks for the apologies. Okay, I became late. I hope Vera has been amusing you, she said. Who said? Stapleton. Mrs. Stapleton came now. Alright, dear students. And she has been very interesting, said Frampton Nuttall. I hope you don't mind the open window, Mrs. Stapleton briskly said. Briskly, it does mean that in an active way. Alright? And my husband and brothers will come home directly from shooting, and they always come in this way, means from the open window they would come, and they have been out for snipe in the marshes. It does mean that over here, places near a lake or a river or a sea, or the sea that often flood and are always wet. So they will make a fine mess over my poor carpets, right? So they will come only from the window. She rattled on cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of birds. Rattle, it is with a sharp knocking of sound. To Frampton, it was all purely horrible. He made a desperate, means a very sad but not very successful effort to turn the talk to less miserable topic. Whenever, dear students, make sure in your mind, whenever Mr. Frampton Nuttall, listen the sad or miserable talk, he would get restless. He was having this, now problem. Okay, and he was always wanting to avoid this type of, listening or talking. But now over here, created by Vera, okay, he had to listen, but he saw that, now let's go ahead, but he saw that Mrs. Stapleton was giving him only a part of her attention. Okay, her eyes were constantly, straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. And Mrs. Stapleton was not knowing about Vera's, story she had created. But Frampton Nuttall was knowing the story. They before 3 years ago they didn't come back about, and Mrs. Stapleton was constantly saying and straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. That's why the eerie incident happened, and eerie image has been created for the character Frampton Nuttall. Right? And in addition to, doctors agree in ordering me complete rest. Me, it does mean that Frampton Nuttall. They have given advice to take complete rest. They have asked me to avoid any excitement or too much physical exercise, he said. Actually, doctor has advised, okay, this way. Mrs. Stapleton said, "No, no," in a voice which only replaces a yawn at the last moment. Yawn, it does mean that everybody, what you call, open the mouth and then, one's mouth wide and inhale deeply. Okay, it's called yawn. Ah. Okay, and then she suddenly brightened into alert attention, but not to what Frampton was saying. Frampton was saying something, and she was listening something. Okay, she was telling about the open window. Mr. Fempton was saying about the his no control. Okay, and he was afraid by the whatever story tragedy said by Vera. So this was the confusion, and here they are at last. She cried, look at here they are at last, just in time for tea. And don't they look as if they were muddy up to the eyes? From the window she said to Mr. Fempton and Vera, they are coming. Who? Mrs. Sapleton's husband, his two brothers, and a small dog. They are coming. And she was looking from her window, open window. What happened next? Let's see, dear students. Frampton shivered slightly. What happened? What would happen? Turned towards the knees. But the child was staring out through the open window with horror in her eyes. She was making her face actually at this time, and feeling a shock of nameless fear. It was no name. And Remtel swung around in his seat and stood up and looked in the same direction, and the deafening twilight, very well, or not, let me give the meaning. The soft glowing light from the sky when the sun is, below the horizon, when the sky and the land meets. Okay, the point. Twilight, and three figures were walking across the lawn towards the open window, and they all carried guns under their arms, and one of them were, additionally burdened with a white cord hung over his shoulders, and a tied brown spaniel kept close at their heels. Noiselessly they neared the house, and then a young horse, it does mean that, rough, harsh sound. Horse's young voice chanted out of the dusk. I said, Bertie, why do you bound? Bertie, why do you bound? Right? So he was just, singing likewise. He means, Mrs. Appleton's, husband's brother. Right? You can see from the open window all three, and dog is not visible, but dog would be backside, so they are coming from the open window. Okay, and Mr. Nuttall, you see how he was making his face. Okay, he was totally afraid, and Framtel grabbed means seized widely at his stick and head and ran away. A cyclist coming along the road had to run into the hedge to avoid the imminent collision. Collision means, accident. Okay? Hedge, it is mean the line of the bus, and imminent means something that is just about to happen. Alright? And here we are, dear, said the bearer of the white cord, and coming in through the window, fairly muddy, but most of it's dry. Who was that who dashed out as we came up? Mr. Shappleton asked the question to Mrs. Shappleton. Why he was going likewise? Okay, and what happened next? Let's see. The another story was interwoven by Vera. Vera would speak now. Let's see. Mrs. Appleton first of all said, a most extraordinary man, and Mr. Nuttall. He could only, talk about his illness, and went off without a word of goodbye or apology when you arrived. So Mrs. Appleton was talking with Mr. Appleton, who just had arrived. One would think he had been a ghost. He had seen a ghost. Now Vera said, I expect it was the spaniel, said the nice Vera calmly. He told me he had a horror of dogs. He created a story actually. Look at your dear children. He was once entered into a cemetery. Cemetery, this means the large buried ground somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of stray dogs, and had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures grinning. Grinning is means smile, broadly. Okay, grinning means smile broadly, and foaming. It is mean that bubbles just above him, enough to make anyone lose their nerve. That's why he was going likewise, by the fear of the dog, spaniel dog. Okay, so she created another story and said, fantastic stories at short notice was her specialty. Whose? Vera's specialty. Short note, it is mean that a short note, short time for the preparation. Alright, dear students. So this was the story by Saki. Okay, Saki, Hector Hug Munro. We have completed. Okay, and next time in the next video we'll see the comprehension part, question answer discussion and all. Let's say everybody. Okay, thank you everybody, and namaskar, and have a good day everybody.